a 9th version of our webinar series here at Zehnder Sales International. I hope that you're all having a very nice day. I don't know how it is for you. The weather here in the south of Germany is so pretty April weathery at the moment. But most important, of course, at the moment is that we are all safe. So yeah, I can see once again we have participants from all over the world. So hello everyone, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Very happy that you're all here. As you probably saw, the topic of today's webinar is the installation options for radiant heating and cooling ceiling systems, which is of course a topic that would best be explained in the practical training. But as this is not possible at the moment, we will try to do our best to make it as understandable as possible. And of course, I'm very much looking forward to hearing from you afterwards. Please also let me know if you can see my screen. I will just assume it is like that. If not, yeah, please raise that problem as well. Okay, great. So very shortly, in general, how do radiant heating and cooling systems work? The idea is to have an activated ceiling, meaning to have some meanders inside of the panels that are connected to the central water-based heating and cooling system. But this is not what I want to focus on today. So if you should be new to the topic, I think this seminar will still be interesting to you. But if you're new to the topic, I think a very good point to start is our Everything You Need to Know brochure. You can scan this QR code to go right to the download link, or just contact us afterwards and we can send it to you. Of course, all is possible. What I want to focus on today is the installation options. And of course, as most of you know, the Zehnder radiant heating and cooling products have a pretty wide range for application. As you can see here, it ranges from very huge production halls. We have some sports halls and offices, but we can even go to residential homes. So the range is quite wide, and as you can probably imagine, also the installation options have to be adapted according to the application. The extent of this webinar is by far not enough to show all the possibilities, but I will focus on showing you as wide a range as possible. It's usually with these kind of activated ceiling systems makes sense to divide it into two general areas, let's say. One is the industrial applications and one is the more commercial applications. Industrial, we mean, like we can see here, production halls, but also logistics centers, sports halls also fall into this category. Commercial applications we see as offices, like you can see here, but also schools, hospitals, showrooms, stuff like that. So today I will try to cover both areas. The focus will be a little bit more onto the industrial applications. But also for future reference, I would of course like to know what you are most interested in. Therefore, I will start a little poll, hopefully, and would like to have some feedback from you. You should see a poll now where you can click on what kind of applications is most interesting for you. Is it the industrial, as we see here, the more commercial applications, or even residential applications? So this will give us an idea of what to focus on in future webinars, for example, but also it's an interesting information in general. I will give you a couple more seconds to answer. Okay, we are basically at 1/3 industrial, 2/3 commercial, and a little bit residential. I will close the poll now. Thank you very much for participating. I think you should be able to see my screen again. So let's go further. What are the key parts of, if we say installation is quite a wide range, what are the key parts? Well, one of them is, of course, getting the panels on the building side and getting the panels to the ceiling, how to fix them, how to connect them hydraulically to the heating and cooling system, and in the end, the commissioning. What I will focus on mainly today is how to fix the panels to the ceiling and how to connect them to the heating and cooling system. But we will also get a little bit to the other points as well. So let's start exactly there. What we can see here is how the panels are usually delivered to site. Usually they are put on a truck. So you can see here they are packed quite neatly into a box. We have some accessories as well. They're usually on the same trailer, depending on the size of the project, and they should be unloaded with a forklift. Getting them off the forklift, of course, it depends a little bit on the size of the product and its weight. Smaller panels can be handled by 2 people, and bigger ones should be handled by 4. If it's really big and you want to get them onto a lifting platform, sometimes the use of a forklift is necessary. Getting them to the top of whatever room they are installed in, they're usually, depending on the height, of course, something like a lifting platform like this is necessary. And of course, we need to fix them to the ceiling. The standard way of doing that is actually our what we call mounting sets. We have mounting sets for basically all kinds of applications in usual what is usually the application of our products. So we have some concrete ceilings, we have these steel sheets, we have solutions for wooden ceilings as well, and different kinds of steel bars in any kind of building. All of these mounting sets have the option to also have some kind of fine adjustment element like this one. So if you can imagine, you have the chain in here, and these chain have quite a big length. I think it's 3.5 centimeters, if I'm not wrong. And if you just do it by cutting the elements of the chain, then you only have the option of these kinds of distances to the ceiling. If you want to level it out more finely, something like this is needed. Yeah, I mentioned it already. The mounting sets are usually used with the chain. The chain is delivered in bulk and should be cut on building site to the right length. Here I have an example of how to use the mounting sets for these trapezoidal steel sheets. So these are kind of pinched in so that the mounting set can be connected here. Then the chain is installed, of course, and that is basically how it's done. These kinds of mounting sets can be connected to all axes in our panels. So we can see that we have the different panels. They are usually connected to a longer, what we call band. And in the middle, you have the cover plate. And there are some predefined axes here. Here I made one example. I think this is a 5-meter module. And in this 5-meter module of zip, but this depends a little bit on what kind of product you have. Here you have five points where you could install the mounting sets. The maximum distance that these points should be apart is 3 meters. And after you have measured the distance at your ceiling and you've connected the mounting sets, you can just hinge it in here. After that, the panels are connected with crimp fittings, and the cover plate is also installed. What I wanted to show you here is that with every order and quotation that you get from us for our ceiling panel products, you will also get a drawing. In these drawings, there are indicated points where ideally, if you want to have the least number of mounting points, which of course is always nice because you need less mounting sets and also it's less effort on the building side. These are indicated on here already. But of course, this is just the ideal world. Sometimes it's not possible to install directly where these suspension bars are. There are also some possibilities for that. The easiest solution is actually to have some additional suspension bars inside as well. And this is what we call variable suspension bars. These can be delivered as well. They are delivered loose, and you can just position them wherever you need on the building site. So you just put them in, and they can be screwed in directly with these self-tapping screws wherever needed. Another possibility to do this is actually this kind of solution. It's called, we call it a swing because kind of the panel is sitting on top of it, and this can also be moved around. Another possibility to avoid this and have the additional benefit of being very close to the ceiling is what we call Z profiles, because they kind of have the shape of a Z. And with this, you can suspend the mounting the panels directly to the ceiling, and these can also be moved around wherever they should be needed. Again, the maximum distance should be 3 meters for these as well. There are also other options. So here you can see this is kind of a special solution for a special building site where the panels are kind of in an angle to the structure of the whole building. And here you can add additional bars. This was also done for the hydraulic system, as you can see. And then you can also use the variable suspension bars again, of course, or you can just use them as you would like. There are also solutions for other, let's say, problems you might face on the building site. Here, for example, was a wooden bar that was not supposed to be drilled into, so another solution was found for this one as well. Let's go a little bit into the hydraulic part of installing ceiling panels. As said before, usually we have several partial lengths that can be added of up to, let's say, 60, 70 meters, depending on what your pressure drop will be. And these are, as a standard, connected with crimp fittings. Here you can see these crimp fittings. They are crimped in with a crimping tool. If you in your market should have a problem with getting the exact right tool for the crimp fitting that we are delivering for our projects, this clamp tool that is connected to the machine we can also deliver with the project if necessary. And these crimp fittings are used between the panels as well as for the headers like this. Alternatively, we also have screw fittings. So these can also be used at all the points where the crimp fittings are usually used. So let's get to the next point. We now have the headers and collectors here. Okay, just a quick look at the questions, but doesn't seem to be too bad. Nothing bad happened. So yeah, we quickly talked about the headers and collectors. I made a little example here of quite a short panel, just one panel. We have on the one side the headers. The headers are the parts of the panels where the main connection is done. So for example, you could have the flow line here. The water goes through the panel and it goes to the return on the other side. So our headers all have one 1-inch external thread, and at the side, a 1/2-inch internal thread. This can be used for draining or venting the whole system. For the collectors, it's actually quite similar. But just without the 1-inch thread, so we only have the 1/2-inch connection on one side. Next step is how to connect the complete system. One way to do it is to use volume flow regulators. The other is the Tichelmann, because of course you need to have some hydraulic balancing. This either can be done with volume flow regulators or by using the Tichelmann system. And the Tichelmann system means that the pressure drop in all panels is the same. So a very easy way to remember that is, let's say the water should have the same distance from flow to return in the complete system. So for example, if I would say my flow line is here, if it goes through the first panel, it goes through here, and it therefore has to have a longer return to come back. So both the upper panel as well as the lower one have the exact same pressure drop in the end. This, I mean, the general rule is that they should have the same pressure drop, but what is mostly the case is that the Tichelmann system can only be used if the panels all have the exact same length. So basically, most of the time, it's already clear in the design phase whether it's possible to use a Tichelmann or whether a volume flow regulator is necessary. So let's have a little bit of a closer look to our volume flow regulators. In total, we have 4 sizes available. The size depends on how big the volume flow in the panel is. They are actually volume flow regulator combinations. So they consist of always the volume flow regulator itself and a shut-off ball valve. So usually we put the the flow regulator itself in the return line of the panel, just because in heating applications there the temperature is a little bit lower, but this is more or less a historical decision. What we then do with the other one is go to, for example, in this instance now in the flow line, and at this point you can open and close the complete panel, and also have the possibility to drain it at this point. All the volume flow regulators are actually preset ex works in our factory. So if you have a configuration of the complete system, then either we can say with our calculation, this is how much flow should go through this panel, and then we can preset it. Or if you do the design yourself, then you would just give us an indication, usually in kilograms per hour, how much, what the preset level should be for this exact flow regulator. No, too fast, like this, exactly. So I said before that our headers have this 1-inch thread. And of course, there are different possibilities to connect the flow regulator to the main line. You have the possibility to put the flow regulator itself directly to the panel and then connect it to flexible hose. But you could also have only the flexible hose. For example, if you have, as I said before, the Tichelmann in use, then of course you don't need the flow regulator. And depending on the size of your hoses and the whole system and the volume flow regulator, all the kind of connection components that are necessary to connect to the 1-inch are also available. And we can help you with however you would like to handle it in your situation. Here is one example. Of course, you are not limited to these kinds of standard ways of connecting. You can always do it the way that fits your project best. What is important is that at some point you have a flexible hose. These are also available if necessary on your building site with an oxygen barrier. And if you are connecting it, it's important to have at some point this flexible hose, because you need to give the panel a little bit of room to adjust to different temperatures. It will change in length and so on. So if you would have a completely rigid connection here, then you would have some stress on the system, which could lead to failure. So this is quite an important point. Next one, also really quick, the commissioning. I don't want to go into it in too much detail. Just one note here that whenever the panels are put into operation, they should be tested for leakages. And this can be done with air or with water. If you do it with air, then the pressure should be 1.3 times the operating pressure, just to be sure that it can withstand the complete pressure. And then in the end, of course, you need to fill it with water. And at that point, you can also check for leakages again, or have to check for leakages. One possibility to actually find out how good the complete system is working could also be necessary for commissioning to convince your customers or the end customer, is to make a thermographic picture. Here we have an example of a cooling application, and with these kinds of pictures you can see really well how the temperature distribution over the complete room is going. So at this point, I will go over to the more commercial solutions. On these pictures, you can see some examples of what is possible. We have metal ceilings as well as drywall ceilings with a gypsum plasterboard, and both are possible as a sail, free-hanging version, as well as completely closed ceilings. Oops, sorry about that. So let's start with the easiest to install product of them all, basically, which would be the metal ceiling sails. You can see here, this one is one of our standard solution, and it's very easy to handle and to install. The standard way of mounting them is actually to use these kind of wire systems. They are connected to a screw in a concrete ceiling on the one side, and on the other side they have this fine adjustment element. So with this you can level out the complete panel very easily. If you want to connect more than one sail, these can be connected. So you can see it here a little bit. These are two individual sails, and they are connected a little bit like this. And for that, we use our sail clamps. So we have them for the different parts of the panels. Here in the lower picture, you can see a group of 4 sails, and they are connected with these metal clamps. But sails can also be quite a bit bigger. They can have a size of up to 1.2 by 3.6 meters. And especially for these kinds of solutions, and also for solutions that should be quite close to the ceiling, and that should have the possibility to also hinge down quite easily, another installation option was developed. So here we have the mounting system with these CD profiles that can be basically pushed in and pushed out. And with these, it's possible to hang the panels in a way that if you basically lift it up on one side, push in the profile a little bit, then you can, as you can see on this picture, completely hinge it down and can either have a possibility to get to the void behind it, or reach for the connection, for the hydraulic connection of the panels. What you can see here, a little bit different to what we've seen before, is that here we don't have wires or a chain, but we basically use quite standard drywall materials like these profiles as well. And then we have a nonios hanger that is directly connected to the ceiling. At the kind of last part of my presentation, I see that we are already a little bit running out of time because of my technical mishaps in the beginning. Closed ceilings in general can be realized in quite a few different ways. Yeah, so I would rather quickly go through them because more or less every one of these can be a separate seminar, and let us know if you want to know more about it. We definitely have more information on this, but there I will tell you about 4 kinds of installation methods and cassette methods for completely closed metal ceilings. So let's start with the lay-in version, which is also one of our standards. As you can see here, the panels are actually laid in a very standard T-bar system. The next one is the C-channel system. Here the modules are positioned between C-channels. This is what you can see here. Here we can see it from above. And the interesting part here is that you are very flexible with this. This picture can show you a little bit or give an indication that, for example, along these lines of the C-channels, it's possible to have walls. So if you have a modular office where it's also should be possible to change the architecture and the surroundings of the room a little bit, then this is a very interesting idea. And it's also possible to put built-ins in these channels. So for example, lights or speakers. So this is a very flexible solution in this way. The next one is quite interesting, especially from an architectural point of view, because it's possible to have no visible substructure at all. So this is completely invisible from the room below. You also use the quite standard structures for drywall, and then the panels, you can see it here a little bit, are just, yeah, as the name says, they are just clipped in from below. So this is the version for the clip-in. Visibly quite similar is actually the hook-on system, with 2 main differences. One difference is that it's very easily possible to have this kind of safety feature that you can hinge it down, and similar to the big sail system, you can access the space above the panels quite easily. But what you would actually need to do is to have a special tool to open it, because actually the 2 panels that are next to each other, they are actually keyed in. So without this tool, it's impossible to open the ceiling. And as well, the 2 last kind of versions of ceilings that we have, we will also very closely, very shortly go into the gypsum plasterboard ceilings. Here, at first, I want to show you an example of a sail version. So in general, the idea of our gypsum plasterboard ceiling is to have very, very standard panels that can be put into the standard, yeah, from standard suppliers for drywall material. For these substructures, this is ideal. So these can also be installed as a sail version, where you can have lights behind and so on. The possibilities to actually make this kind of structure for a sail are quite wide. That would be completely out of scope for this seminar. So if you have an interest in a solution like this, I would also like to ask you to contact us directly. Same more or less goes for the gypsum plasterboard closed ceilings. This is actually basically a completely invisible activation for the ceiling. As you can see, you don't have any visible components. But what I actually want to show you with this picture is also how the installation process works. So here, as shown before, we have the substructure with the C profiles, with the in the first kind of level and the second one, and then you just hang the panels inside, and then the panels can be connected with different kinds of piping. I think I have some more pictures on the next slide, yeah, but what I also want to show is here you can see there are some build-ins, and these can also be very easily integrated. What is done to complete the ceiling then is that from below, the plasterboard is just screwed into the C profiles that we can see here. As said before, here are some for all the what I called commercial solutions. The connection possibilities are actually quite similar. I wanted to show you a little picture like this. This could be kind of what your project looks like. This could be one group of panels. And then you have, or these are two groups of panels, as I can see. So you have the flow line coming in here at this point, and then it goes through three modules that are connected with these kinds of hoses that are that can just be pushed onto the meander, and then everything is connected. And then, of course, if you have several of those groups, these also need to be connected to the main line. Here, it's usually quite a bit easier to use the Tichelmann because the modules themselves are quite a bit smaller. So this is in many cases how it's done. And then you have the main distributor at some point in the room. As you can see here, we have the possibility, maybe here is actually a good example of that. These kinds of panels, especially the ones for the gypsum plasterboard, for the connection, you can either use kind of PEX connections with a PEX pipe, but there is also the possibility to screw onto them like these kinds of connectors that are made from copper, and that can be that can also just be pressed onto the modules themselves. So this is what I wanted to show you here. I can see that I'm already 5 minutes over time, so I'm sorry about that. But at this point, I would actually like to see if you have any questions, or if I was just too fast. Then, of course, I can also go into a little bit more detail if you're interested. Okay, at the moment, I cannot see any questions. If that should stay like that, I have 2 more things I would like to tell you. One is, of course, to show you when our next webinar will be. That was too fast. So next webinar is on May 20th. It's a Thursday again. So our webinars are always on the 3rd Thursday of every month. Of course, we will invite you again. You will be informed via social media, LinkedIn, probably by mail. You can also tell us if you want to be kept up to date. And for this next webinar that is about ventilative cooling, you can right now scan the little square here, the QR code, and go directly to the registration page. If you have done this, and if you're interested about the topics that we are talking about in general, I also want to guide you to the YouTube page, where we are also, if everything goes right with the recording, we are also publishing our webinars, so you can watch it again if you're interested, or you can share it with people who might be interested as well. So, if this is the case, I want to tell you, my name is Helena Hösey. I'm a business development manager for the radiant heating and cooling ceiling systems. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to contact me, contact my colleagues, and we will be happy to support you with any kind of problems, questions, projects that you have. So, thank you very much. I hope you all have a very nice day, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.